Hi, my name's Vivian Reddy, and when I look at Umhlanga Rocks today for what it is, and the country in terms of the government of national unity, and I'm very pleased to say that I see a great future for this country. And I believe that we have got more right things in the country than wrong. And I myself will be investing billions more into the economy. When I started off life with 500 rands and a bakkie and a little electrical company that's now called Edison Power, but when I started the business as Reddy's Electrical, but we were getting no work because of the surname, and that's when I changed the name to Edison Power, and we started getting lots of work. Where people used to phone me and ask, can I speak to Mr. Edison? And I masqueraded as Mr. Edison in the apartheid days, and to get work. And the irony today, you phone Tulani's Electrical, and Mr. Van der Merwe answers and says, Tulani is not in, can I help you? And times have changed, and it wasn't an easy task. You know, the first job that I did was a job, Harbour Hardaway across the bluff, and we worked night and day, and having very little knowledge on business, because I was an excellent electrician. You know, I was one of the best. I did some of the major projects, but I was ill-equipped for business. And the first job I did was a job, to me, was a big financial disaster. I worked night and day with my team, and it's a year I got married and couldn't even afford a honeymoon or wedding ring. And I went to collect the check those days, and there was a company a notice on the door of the company saying, company in liquidation, contact our attorneys. I didn't even really know what had happened. I was a young 26-year-old. I was shocked anyway. I phoned an attorney friend of mine and said, what am I going to do? And he says, well, your money's gone, you know. And at that time it was 26,000 rands. And I went back to this broken down bakkie. I gave my wife the bad news, and all the big plans were gone. And that evening, when I lay down in bed, very depressed, don't know what to do, and my mind went back to 1971, when I met astronaut Neil Armstrong. I attended the World Jamboree, and I was selected to represent South Africa. Not South Africa really, was actually English-speaking Africa. And the reason why I was selected, because I made a call for South Africa to be expelled from the Boy Scouts organization because of our racial policies. The Boy Scouts creed said we are all equal before God, but we had racial segregation. I wasn't popular with the South Africans, but the Europeans and English-speaking Africans adopted me, and I got chosen to this great forum, only 45 of us from around the world. And when I went out to the meeting, the plenary session, and there was astronaut Neil Armstrong, 69, he went onto the moon, and there at 71 as a 16-year-old Boy Scout, I had the pleasure to meet him, and I didn't know what to do. And I shook his hands and said, sir, can you tell me the secret of your success? And, and he said, where are you from? And I said, I'm from South Africa. And I told him how I struggled to get there, that I couldn't afford it. My family had to collect, it was a jumble sale, cake sales. The community collected money for me to come to Japan. And he was fascinated to hear it. He said, I'm glad you're here. And then he told me his life story, how like a young boy, when he was growing up, he told his parents he was going to go to the moon one day, and there was no astronaut program. But he focused, they bought him a telescope, he studied academically towards being an astronaut, and then when he went to the academic test, he passed flying covers, but the physical test he failed, because his breathing had to be a certain, I think about 45 at rest, and he went back and he met a friend who introduced him to yoga, and he did yoga, and it got his breathing back into the limits they wanted. And he still became the astronaut, and the rest is history. He became the first man on the moon. But his parting words to me, he said, young man, if you can dream it, you can achieve it. Perseverance prevails when all else fails, and never ever give up in life. And those were the words that inspired me. That morning I got up and I said, I'm going to go and talk to everyone I owed money to. And I went, I didn't get much sympathy. The bank threatened to sell everything I had. I didn't have anything. I had just a broken down bakkie, which I borrowed from my sister anyway. And I went out and started working very hard, day and night, getting jobs, working very hard. And, in about 9 months, I paid all the debts. And the lesson I learned is that when you owe people money, and when times are bad, you've got to be honest. If you go with a honest story and tell people, this is it, but I am going to pay you, I cannot tell you where, people appreciate the communication. Today, unfortunately, when people owe businesses, they owe money, they run away, they avoid calls. Honesty is absolutely amazing. People like to hear your story because when you are sincere about your problems, it helps. And in life, we've got to be like that in all circumstances. Tell the truth. Talk about what's happening in life and you get sympathy. And that's what I learned. And anyway, we worked very hard in the electrical business. We started bidding for contracts, as Edison Power, and business were coming in, and we were quite successful. And I remember, it was still the hard days of apartheid, where I still went as a manager of Mr. Edison's company, and it was a Pietermaritzburg municipality. We were told to come to the job, and they were going to sign the contract documents, and I walk into this boardroom, and everyone looked up with shock as to what this Indian was doing here. And they asked me, where is my boss? We here to sign documents. And I said, sir, my boss is at home looking after my children. I'm here to sign documents. There was lots of mumbling. We signed the documents, and I understand Afrikaans. They said, oh, you've given the schoolie this job's going to fail. But we did such a great job for that municipality that they actually praised us. Because what I did in those early days of my business, I had staff that I used to train. And I should quote the words of Martin Luther King. And Martin Luther King said that even if you're a street sweeper, you must treat the sweep as a way so well, like Beethoven played music or Michelangelo painted. Everyone going past must say you're the best street sweeper in the world. It simply means that no matter what you do, you must do your best. And that is how we run the business today. Also, no matter what you do in life, you've got to do it. If you do your best, it's amazing what happens. You improve in life. Building up Edison wasn't easy, and along came 1990 when President Mandela was released from prison, and the apartheid government wanted to electrify the schools in order to please the black communities. And they gave out hundreds of school contracts. And we were the only contractors that were allowed in the township. So with the result, we did lots and lots of schools. We met lots of political activists in the township. And, we became known as a company that cares about people, because I always, throughout my life, have been very involved in community involvement. When I was in Greenwood Park, I served in 21 organizations. It's mostly welfare organizations. And in the long, it was quite interesting how I came across politics in my period. I wasn't involved in politics. But what happened in the early 89, 90s, I was approached by Fatima Mir, who was a good friend of Winnie Mandela, to have some financial assistance for Winnie Mandela with the legal fees and transport and children's clothing. And being in business, Fatima was my friend, I readily gave the funds and continued to assist. And after 1990, when a lot of the ANC members came back, people like Jacob Zuma, Jeff Adebe, Trevor Lakota, a whole lot of people, when they came out, I was approached again by the media to say, we got all these leaders in here, but they got no money. They got no money for groceries, no money for clothing, and I'm being a human being, and I appreciated what they did for our freedom. I supported them greatly with no expectations whatsoever. When Mandela came into Durban, after months after his arrest, I was called to a home, and I wasn't told who was there. And when the doors opened, it was Winnie and Madiba were there, and he hugged me, and it's just crazy. He introduced himself saying, I'm Mandela. And he thanked me for what I did for the family. And since then, we built a very close relationship. I traveled the world with Mandela. We supported his children's funds, and we had a wonderful relationship. And I think he's the greatest statesman in the world. I could talk stories about him. And, I know when we went on a ticker tape parade to New York, it was massive. It was the biggest ticker tape parade anywhere. When we were in London, the people that came out to meet him at the square near the South African embassy was something like close on to 1 million people. When we went to France, more people came to meet Mandela in France than there were people that came to meet Napoleon after the war. And that's how popular it is. And I had the great honor of traveling with him around, and I remember, he was a statesman with so much of respect, and where people, he was someone that set an example of leadership. And, a few years later, when President Thabo Mbeki was the president, and I was asked to take a business delegation to Nigeria, no one wanted to join me, but President Obasanjo came out of prison. He was the first democratic elected president, and it was important for South Africa to go and show support. And I went there with a small business delegation, and in meeting President Obasanjo, he told me a story. He said, I've got to tell you, at about 3 o'clock in the morning, my phone rang, and I answered the phone. I was called the worst president in Africa. I was told that I don't keep my promises. I was going to be reported to the Commonwealth, and I was chastised. I couldn't get a word in. And eventually he knew what I was talking, and he said, Madiba, this is President Obasanjo. And Mandela said, sorry, I got the wrong president, and put the phone down. So Mandela at that stage was actually trying to get hold of President Kabila, who was causing a lot of problems. But it made us proud to be South Africans, traveling the world. And, it was a whole new change to my life in business. I loved going to casinos and playing, even when illegal casinos around. They call them grey casinos. I used to visit them because I had a great amount of joy. And I didn't know it till I started owning casinos, what really happens. And I must tell you a story when I used to go to the Wild Coast with my friends, and we used to be traveling there, carry our own bottle of whiskey, and to get there, stop in the car park and have a good drink there, but the Wild Coast prices were too high. And I used to tell my friends, one day I'm going to own a casino. And they laughed at me, they mocked me. And the thing in life, when the casino opportunity came out, and I put the Sabaya deal together, the Peter Marisburg Casino, I had one in Newcastle, one in Falcom in the Free City Garden Road. I developed 5 casinos in this country by not knowing anything about casinos, by forming associations with Sun International. In life today, you don't have to know about the business. You create associations. In my casinos, I got management companies from Austria, from other parts of the world to manage the casinos for me. It's the same. This Radisson Hotel, I don't know how to manage hotels. I got Radisson Blue as a management company to manage the company. So we must not think there's no big science behind these things. You are a businessman. You got to look at how you could use your expertise to do what you know, and my expertise to put up buildings and get other people to manage these projects. And the business changed, trajectory after 1994. I was one day sitting at the airport in London, and I saw a gentleman there alone, and I like to talk to him. We started talking. He was the governor of the Reserve Bank of Australia, and he took out the banknote. He showed me the new polymer banknote, a clear banknote, and I was fascinated. It couldn't tear. You could put it in hot water. We did all kind of tests. And, when you're in the airport, you meet people, you got lots of time to talk. And I told him, I said, I'm fascinated, and I want to get this money. I want to start a business with this. And he said, what do you know about money? What do you know about? And I said, no, I don't know anything, but I believe there's a business opportunity. And I told him the story that I could take this money and sell it into Africa. And they gave me a franchise. It was security, and I ended up marketing banknotes with some other colleagues in lots of parts of Africa. And we actually sold banknotes, and it was great. I mean, the polymer banknote, you couldn't tear it, you couldn't destroy it. It lasts 20 times longer than your paper banknotes, which cause pollution when they burn. It was a great business. In the same breath, one day, I was in the Santon Hotel, and there was a gentleman there. I started talking to him, and he said, I'm from New Zealand Postal Service. And I said, what are you here for? Oh, no, South African Post Office is advertising for privatization and management of the post office. I said, what? That's great. Tell me about this business. And he told me about it. And we became partners with him, and we won the contract to manage the South African Post Office for 5 years. We did a great job. We delivered 1.2 million boxes. We turned it into profitability. And it was absolutely wonderful business. But there again, I didn't know about that business, but we got into it. And when there was the World AIDS Conference right here in Durban, and I told my team, I said, what are we doing? And they said, but we are not in that business. I said, well, we're going to be in that business. How can you have the World AIDS Conference, all the pharmaceutical companies and the people around the world right here, the medical team, let's go out and find. In those days, there was no internet where you can just find things easy. We managed to find a company called Orosho Technologies that sold the world's only oral AIDS testing drug. You could put it into your gum, scan your gum, put it into a solution, and 5 minutes later it told you whether you are positive or not. And I got onto a plane, went to the USA, and this was at Portland, Oregon. And my bags went to the wrong Portland. They went to Portland, Maine. I rocked up there. I made an appointment before I went, and I, having no business in healthcare or anything, went out and convinced them that I could be their person in Africa to market their product, to launch it. And I must have done such a good job about marketing, my abilities to market. They actually gave me the franchise for the whole of Africa to market auto shows. So we launched it to the world. HCon was super big. It was a major success. We sold millions of that. We made serious money in that business. And we created a whole diagnostic business beside that with finger prick test, with polio tests, and we created a business out of nothing. And there again, the human mind, sometimes we all tend to be restricted. We believe if you're an electrician, you can only do electrical work. And that's what I am, only electrical. We can do anything our mind sets out to do. We place barriers, we restrict ourselves. And the world is open for opportunities. And one of the things I do all the time is look for opportunities. Even right now, I'm always looking at opportunities, reading, watching TV, and I don't hesitate to get involved, because today you got to have faith in yourself. You got to have the confidence that we could do anything. And the problem is, what's the worst case scenario? You could fail. If you fail, so be it. And Mandela always said that he had the greatest respect for people that stumbled and picked themselves up and walked again. And that's what we've got to do. We have too many of us. We focus on the negatives and the failures, and we get paralyzed. We stop doing things. And that's the problem in life. And on the property business, I wasn't involved in the property business. I didn't know anything. There was an opportunity. I owned a casino in Newcastle. There was a big land, and someone told me, you could build a shopping center. I said, what? You could build a shopping center? And I said, we're going to do it. And we went through all the zoning process. We approached the companies, tenants, and I realized I went out public to say I'm going to build a shopping center. I was approached by a major company owned by my friend Jonathan Bear, Zenprop, and by then he said, well, you've got a 20,000 center, but if we join you with our networks, we can create a 45,000. I said, so be it. I gave up my 100% shares. I took 50%, brought them in. We had double the project, but the expertise that they brought and what I learned was absolutely amazing. With that expertise I learned from Zenprop, I built 3 other shopping centers, including the Oceans, on my own. And that's what you've got to do in life. You've got to create partnerships that you could learn and evolve. I mean, if people talk about the Oceans project, I mean, it's the biggest project in Africa in terms of mixed-use development. 4.5 billion rand project, 250,000 bulk square meters. If you want to understand what's 250,000 bulk square meters, if you look at the whole of Mall of Africa, that's only 180,000 bulk square meters. This project has got parking, 3,000 parking bays. You've got the Radisson Blue Hotel and Apartments. You've got this major luxury mall, and we're building 560 units, including timeshare and another hotel. And this project alone would create employment for 36,000 people during construction. And it's going to be the biggest contributor to the city of Durban. We're going to be, eThekwini is going to get 200 million rands in rates and taxes and utilities from this one project in here. But the jobs that it's created is worthwhile. When people sometimes say, how did you bring brands like Gucci and Dolce & Gabbana and Burberry and Versace to Durban? But Durban has long been known as the orphan of fashion. Everyone that wanted high product stuff, they went to Dubai or Johannesburg to their diamond walk, and I decided to create a platinum walk. And I went around the world talking, meeting the CEOs of all these companies, Gucci, Dolce & Gabbana, and it wasn't easy trying to sell Durban. It was difficult, but I convinced them that there is a market because I know luxury brands. I love luxury brands. And I was able to talk from my own experience. And when the CEO of one of the big international fashion brands decided to come to Durban after much persuasion, I mean, I just want to go back on that story. They were very reluctant to come to Durban. And I remember with the agents brawl some Monday morning when we have our leasing meetings, I asked for the guy's number. He was a new CEO from South America. And I picked up the phone and I said, I'm planning to come to Dubai. Can I meet you? And he thought I was already in Dubai. He said, I will have breakfast with you tomorrow morning. I got onto a plane that afternoon from Johannesburg, landed in Dubai, got changed, went to this meeting with him. And the first thing he asked me, which was the nearest city to Durban. And I started off on that plane about saying, whoa, this is not going to go too far. But what I did, and it's important in life, when you are meeting people the first time, you got to do your homework. And on the plane, I checked his background. I found that he liked casinos. He ran Gucci in Vegas. And during the discussions, I brought up the casinos and how the casinos work and the fraud and it works. We spent 3 hours talking about casinos, only 15 minutes about the opportunity for them to come to Durban. And I said, when you come to Durban, I will take you back of house, I'll show you how the casino works. And he was fascinated. He said, I'm coming to Durban to look at Durban. And do you know what happened? The day they chose to fly here was exactly 1 week after our uprising. Durban was in flames. The UPL factory was smoking, and he lands, and I told my driver, I said, pick him up, don't go past that burning factory, come down. We put him up at the Beverly Oyster Box Hotel, which is a great hotel. And, it was amazing how so many things worked out. That evening, when I picked him up to take him to the Pencil Club, which is a world-class facility we have here, he told me, it was absolutely amazing. Every second guest that walked in was walking in with a Louis Vuitton, a Gucci, a Chanel bag, great shoes, and it confused me. I go to the Oyster Box Hotel all the time. That doesn't happen. It so happened for us that evening, there was a very high-profile person. It was a birthday. And all the guests were the type of guests that would wear that. And they thought that was a norm for Durban. And when I took him to the Pencil Club and showed him the beauty of Umhlanga Rocks, and we went to the Sabaya Casino, and I showed him how people could gamble for 1 million, 2 million a night, and you saw the wealth. And he made a decision they had to come in. And then there was this big issue of rental, and then we discussed percentages, and it was amazing. We agreed on a certain percentage turnover, and right now that business is paying the highest rental in the world here in Oceans Mall. But Oceans Mall has been a super success. And what's great about Ocean Mall, it's the only mall in South Africa, luxury mall, where 60% of the tenants are black South Africans. We've created empowerment to another level in this. And this is how we transform and how we change the country. I'm busy now with lots of projects. At Sabaya, we're spending 1.2 billion, putting 300 homes. I'm expanding my Quadriguza Mall. We're putting 280 homes there. We're building a hotel and a value center. I'm looking at stuff in Dubai at the moment, and we're still busy. So people ask me quite often, when is enough enough? When will you stop? And in life, you got the day you stop working, the day your mind stops becoming productive, and then you want to get up at 10, 11 o'clock, go in with friends, have a drink, go to the golf course and come on, that is actually going to age you. That's going to slow you down in life. People that retire get old very quickly. I want to be productive because along the way, in all this business success, we are a company in KZN, a medium-sized company that's donated 280 million rand to charity. We support 180 organizations rely on us. I get calls daily. And some of my greatest times during the week is visiting the center. Tomorrow we'll be opening a center in an area that was initiated by Prince Buthelezi, and I'm going to open that in his honor and name it after him. And, with all the projects we've done in South Africa, in KZN, about 90 projects, and I look back and look at how we've changed lives. We've changed the lives of 86,000 poor, downtrodden people in this province. And that is why it is important for business to reach out. We as business cannot live on an island of prosperity surrounded by a sea of poverty. That will be a recipe for disaster, a recipe for an uprising, and that is why we must reach out. And I'm so good in Durban. There are a lot of business. I'm glad there are a lot of businesses in Durban. They reach out. There's a lot of charity people. We ourselves feed 20,000 people a day. And it's amazing the hunger that goes on. But people will ask me quite often, what keeps you going? And I have a principle. It's called CANEI. CANEI. It means constant and never-ending improvement. It simply means that you got to make every day a better day. When I get home in the evening, I lie down and say, how could I have done things better? Not only business-wise, the way I've treated people, the way I've treated my family. And if we as human beings consistently and never-endingly look at our lives critically and improve our lives bit by bit, we transform ourselves into better human beings. And most importantly, in your journey to success in life, we must never forget that our families are number one. Quite often people say, oh, you're involved in all these big projects, what about your family? The reality is, I get lots of invites every month, about 40, 50 invites. We just decide what to do. And most of the time we apologize for most is because you got to spend time with your family. Family's got to be number one. You can have all the wealth in your life, but if you don't have a good family life, you're a poor man. And a rich man is very poor if he doesn't share his wealth with the others. And along the way, in accumulation of wealth, you got to look after your health. You got to be healthy. And people look at me and say, wow, you are 71 years old. Why do you look young? And I always see, sometimes I joke, I said, I'm only young because of my young wife, But the reality is, I exercise every morning, I make sure I'm in the gym, I walk, I take the stairs, it's what you eat. I make sure that you have limited helping. One of the big things today, we go to a buffet, there's so much food there, you like to take a big plate and I take half a plate. So you limit yourselves. You limit yourselves to things, and you got to look after your health. It's what you eat, and most importantly, you got to look after your mind. And the way you look after your mind is by talking positively, by reading positive. Reading is an amazing thing. I love reading Robin Sharma's book. He's great. He's got a great book. Right now, one of the great books of his that I've read, it's called Who Will Cry When You Die. It basically means a type of legacy that you want to leave behind. And the legacy that I want to leave behind when I pass this world is that I've done my best to uplift the lives of the poor, that I've used my funds in a manner that helped the others to live a better life. And I believe that by my business opportunities, I've created thousands of jobs to South Africa. I've uplifted thousands of lives, and I was someone that cared for my family, cared for everyone around us, and I've lived a great life. And that's why every day when you see me, I'm always smiling, I'm laughing, because I do not harbor any hatred, I do not harbor any grudges, I do not speak negatively, because I always remember the words of Nelson Mandela. He said, the day he walked out of Pollsmoor prison, he looked ahead, because if he looked behind and all the harm that was done to him, he would have never walked forward. And that's what we have to do as human beings. We've got to put the negativity behind us and think positively, and always make sure that we care for other people's feelings in the words, the things we do, and in our actions. And most important of all, you don't have to be very religious, but you got to be God-fearing.